Hi, I'm Mary Soares, and this is another episode of Transparency in Government. I cannot speak today, folks, I'm sorry, but with me today is our town manager. Welcome.
Thank you, Mary.
Kevin.
Nice to be back on Transparency in Government.
Thank you. I remember last time that when I was signing up, I was having the same difficulty remembering what
we'll
this.
Get it right one of these times.
One of these days. You know, I've only been doing it, for a year now?
That's it.
That's all. Anyway, it's so good to see you again.
Good to be back.
Yep, we've been seeing a lot of each other in budget meetings and the deliberative session and everything else. That was a very successful deliberative session, if not long.
It was definitely the longest one I've participated in since I've been town manager. Typically they've gone about 3 hours in the past. This one went 7. But you know, as I said at the last public hearing on the budget that we had, not the deliberative, but the second public hearing on the budget, you know, I encouraged people to come. I told them that I thought it's good when people show up. It's good for the democratic process.
Absolutely.
Especially since we don't have town meeting anymore, that people understand how the budget's put together, what's in the budget, why we're asking the voters to consider what we're asking them to consider on the warrant article, and that it's good that they ask questions so that they're more educated and informed about it, and they can let other people know when other people have questions about it. And you know, I know we chuckle every year when, you know, the operating budget comes up and it's $33 million, and you know, does anybody have any questions? No, no one's got any questions. Okay, move on to the next one. And we do. We laugh about it because then, you know, there'll be a $50,000 warrant article that we spend an hour and a half on.
Right.
But you know, $33 million in an operating budget it's overwhelming. There's a lot there. And when it really boils down to it, it's mostly personnel salaries and benefits.
Right.
Outside of those things, there really isn't a lot of wiggle room within your operating budget. So, you know, it doesn't surprise me that we spend more time on the actual individual warrant article items.
But this year, many of the warrant articles are going to be funded through the unassigned fund. Yeah, see, you want to say undesignated fund balance.
Yeah, I mean, unassigned fund balance, undesignated fund balance, either one is.
Right, but it seemed like it always was called the undesignated, now it's the unassigned, and it's like, you know, okay, which one is politically correct, right?
Yeah.
But in any case, a lot of them seem to be being, the one the one article that is being taken from that caused a lot of conversation was the idea of the school district giving up their right to that building. And that there seemed to be a lot of discussion around that.
There was.
And I think a little bit of misunderstanding too.
Yeah, I think so, right, because I think people may have felt like, well, if the school gives up its right to that building, then they can't locate there in the future, especially if the town builds something there. What people need to understand is the town isn't saying we won't work with you in the future if you want to locate the school district office back to the center of town. If there is town-owned land available, this doesn't preclude the school district from locating the school district office building in that area if there's land available in the future at all, whether it be on the school side of Mammoth Road or on the town side. All it's simply saying is that we got an old building now next to Town Hall that's vacant. It's basically been mothballed, and we can't just allow it to sit on that property in perpetuity and nothing happening to it. And I say that from both a standpoint of it's a safety hazard going forward if nothing's being done with it. It's going to become more and more dilapidated. But it's a legal issue too, because when the warrant article originally passed back in the 80s, it was to have a building there for the purposes of a school district office.
Right.
Well, with the school district office not being there anymore, something has to happen to that building.
Sure.
So we're asking to take ownership, because the town already owns the land. We're asking to take ownership of the building so that we can demolish the building and build an addition, a smaller addition to Town Hall in its place there for additional office space and storage space.
Right, and so right now, the school district isn't using it for storage at all, because they thought originally when they were gonna move up to Kitty Hawk, they said, we're still gonna put our storage down here.
There may be some storage that's in that building, but again, going back to the Warrant article in the 80s, the voters didn't approve that to be a
storage
facility.
Right.
They approved it to be a district office.
Right.
So that's why I'm saying one way or the other, it has to be legally solved. Now, we're hoping it gets solved at town meeting day when everybody goes to vote by approving those warrant articles, and then we'll have a path forward. If those warrant articles don't pass on either the town side or the school side, there's a chance this ends up in court, and I don't think the school district would object to it since they've agreed to put the warrant
Right.
article on.
Right,
But
they've also voted in favor of,
right,
know,
that's what I'm
voting in
saying.
favor of
Yeah.
it.
So it may end up as a legal proceeding for the town to be able to take possession of it because it's no longer being used for the purposes as was stated in the warrant article from the 1980s.
And so there was, the controversy though came in the fact that there was a gentleman who said, it's not just gonna be the $235,000 that you're gonna take from the unassigned fund balance. You're gonna come back to and take some more to do more work with it. But that's not the case.
No, it's not. This is a one-time deal that we're looking for to be able to use monies from the fund balance to be able to, again, put a smaller addition and annex onto Town Hall so that we can have some much-needed additional storage space and office space there. And we looked at renovating that building. That was one of the things we looked at.
Well, so did the school district.
Right. And it was very clear that the amount of money we were going to end up putting into it to renovate it, it was going to cost the same amount to just demolish it and put a new addition on to Town Hall.
Right. So you've already gotten some estimates on the cost of this whole thing? So it's a set figure, it's not going to change?
No, it's what is in the warrant article. I think it's more than.
Is it 265?
I want to say it's in the range of 387, 380.
I didn't think it was that high, but I don't know.
I
thought
wish
it was in the
I should have had it in front of me.
I know, it's in the car.
Whatever's on the warrant article,
Right, is how much that's all that
Yes.
it's going to be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I had to leave before the trail article came up for discussion.
Yep.
Did that have a lot of discussion?
It did have a lot of discussion, and that's a big ticket warrant article, although again, the taxpayer portion of it is a lot smaller than the total cost of it. So again, what we're looking to do is the town's been given an $800,000 grant from the state to be able to use toward the completion of the rail trail, phase 5, I believe. However, the town also has to match $200,000 to that $800,000. We're then also looking to take some money out of undesignated fund balance, as well as Trailways has raised private funds, a little north of $200,000. In total, it's $1.6 million to complete phases 5 and 6, which will connect the rail trail to Manchester's rail trail, because Manchester received a grant also. There was an article in the Union Leader, I believe yesterday, which would have been Wednesday, talking about this, about how both Manchester and Londonderry received these huge grants. It's the largest grant you can receive for something like this to complete their sections of the rail trail to connect to one another. So now you'd be able to go from Londonderry into Manchester and never get off the rail trail, which would be fantastic. But if the warrant article fails, we just lost $800,000 in grant money.
Right. But there is no tax impact because it's the $800,000 that you're taking is from the unassigned fund balance right now.
It's not even $800,000. I believe it's around $400,000 from fund balance. And Mary, tell you what, you keep talking questions. I'm going to pull it up on my phone just so while we're talking about this.
So did anybody ask the amount to be lessened? Because we only had to match 200,000, right?
No, they didn't, because it's all part and parcel to completing, the whole warrant article is part and parcel to completing the 2 phases.
So it must be 600,000 because 800 plus 200 is $1 million. And then it's $1.6 million for the whole thing. And the reason that it's so expensive is because a part of this rail trail is going to be constructed along the highway, right? Or 128 or where?
Well, it's part of it goes through the Little Coos Brook area, and then it's going to go up Harvey Road
Harvey
to
Road.
Perimeter Road, but it's almost going to be constructed as like a sidewalk to it, because the trail itself at that point goes through the airport, and obviously we can't build the trail through the airport.
But I thought there was a busier road that it was going to go near, no?
No, Harvey and Perimeter Road
all right.
are the two major roads.
Okay.
So, Mary, let's get to these warrant articles. Now that I have it on my smartphone here, thank God for smartphones,
That's right.
And let's pull up, let's see.
So the
well, there's the school
district office
one.
is what?
So the district office is going to be, let's see here. All right, so the improvements, $378,000.
Okay.
All right, I was closer
You
on
were
that
closer
one.
on that one.
378.
I think what they said, though, that part of that was to pull it down and part of it is to,
It's exactly right.
Right.
Yes. Built into that cost is a demolition of the building.
Right.
Yes. Now, as far as the rail trail goes, so it's phases 5 and 6, and the total cost is $1,625,000, of which now you've got $800,000 is going to be in a grant. $225,000 is coming from private donations from Trailways. $600,000 is coming from the undesignated fund balance.
and no one thought that was a huge apple that,
No, and again, the reason is because normally it sounds like a lot, $600,000, but you're talking about a $1.6 million project in total. So given that $1 million of it is coming from a grant and from private donations, and we lose the grant money if we're not matching it, at least $200,000 of it. No one thought that was an exorbitant amount to be taking from fund balance, especially to complete those two phases. And there's a lot of work, you've got to put curbing on the sidewalk portion that's going to Manchester, and because as I said, the trail itself doesn't actually exist for phase 6.
So do you think you took a risk, the council took a risk by not separating those two things out? Allowing the town to raise and appropriate the 800 and the 225,000 to match,
Yep.
okay, through those two different things, which would have been no tax impact.
Yep.
And also having another warrant article that would ask for because we love warrant articles on the town side. Have another one that's 600,000, because if that doesn't pass, then you can't accept any of it, right? You can't do it.
You can't, no. It's always a risk, but we talked about that. We talked about having two separate articles, and part of the risk there is both could fail.
Right.
Because, as you said, we love warrant articles. There's only 28 of them or something like that on the town side. So you take the risk that both fail. You take the risk that maybe the one with the grant passes, but then the other one fails. Now Manchester's connected it to Londonderry, but our portion, essentially what would have happened is, let's say we separated it and the one with the grant passed, but the other one failed. So you'd have a trail that goes from North School across the street, stops at the Little Coos Brook. You can't access it, but then starts again up on Harvey Road going to Manchester. That wouldn't make a lot of sense to do it that way. So by doing it this way,
It's either all or nothing.
it's all or nothing.
Yeah.
And again, for the monies that we're getting for it, I think it's something I feel passionately about. The fact that
Right.
I hope people support it.
Well, the rail trail has become the new open space initiative, I think. And I think people knowing that they can actually see have use of the rail trail, as opposed to, we love that we have open space, but there's not a huge number of people who are using it. So
Right.
in our town, but
Right.
but many people use that rail
They
trail.
do.
You know, so
They do. And yeah, the rail trails, it's widely known. It's connectivity from Salem all the way up to Manchester. When it's all completed, we'll go all the way to Lebanon.
right.
It's only going to gain in popularity as more and more people use it and know about it. And yeah, in the spring, summer, and fall, you go out in there and there's tons of people on it. Whereas, like you said, the open space doesn't get as much utilization. I will tell you that I did take part in the Musquash Field Day last weekend, and it was a beautiful day for
It was
it.
a beautiful day.
They said they had record number of people
Oh, that's
that
exciting.
went out to use it, and I heard people talking, you know, along the trail and the area where they did a campfire and they cooked hot dogs and had hot chocolate. A lot of people saying it was their first time out in the Musquash. People who had lived in town for 20, 30 years
Right.
have never been in the Musquash before, and this was their first time using it. 1,000 acres
Yes.
of pristine conservation land. And which gets to my next point, which is we also have a warrant article up for a conservation ranger. First of its kind, maybe the first of its kind in the state. And that is they're going to have law enforcement authority. So they're going to fall under the purview and jurisdiction of the police department. But they're there to police our conservation land, not just to make sure that there's, you know, not nefarious activities taking place out there, but also to make sure that there aren't encroachments, which happens a lot. People with private property encroach onto conservation land. And because we have a lot of it now, and
Right.
there's a lot of upkeep to this land now. And just with all of the different activities that most people don't hear about, I hear about it, I see it, the police department sees it, code enforcement hears about it, especially the encroachments onto the property. It's just time that we need someone to regularly monitor this land.
Sure. So is it your expectation that this officer would be going through the different places? You know, I mean, like walking the trails and
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yep.
It's not going to be somebody that's stationed in
No.
someplace. You know.
No. They'll be going on all the different various conservation properties, you know, on a weekly, if not daily basis.
Yeah.
And we do already patrol the rail trail with police, but we don't regularly patrol the open space land that has trails on it that you
Right.
can access pretty freely.
So you know, I take Boys Respect there once a year
Yep.
To hike, and I've been lost twice. Not because there isn't good signage there, because there is good signage, but these guys like to, let's go here, let's
Yep.
try this way, you know, that kind of thing. They're adventurous. So I'm just going to let them know when I'm going. Let's hope this passes. That
Yeah.
way I won't get lost the next time.
Yeah.
You can come and find me. I have
Yeah.
his number. But I think it's a positive thing to have this. And this is also something that they are looking into on the school side too. Chief Hart, right, was saying that if this works, it might be a precursor to having a part-time
It could.
school resource
Right.
for the other, because we only have 4 now and we have 7 schools. So
Right.
you know,
Yeah, and by the way, it's not that you have schools that aren't covered.
no,
You know, the fourth, we have 3 right now. We have one at the high school, one at the middle school,
Right.
and one that does patrols at the 3 elementary schools and the kindergarten as well. So this would add a 4th school resource officer to that mix. But they are full-time officers.
Right.
If the conservation ranger position works out, it's a part-time position. It may be a precursor for having future part-time school resource officers.
Right. Well, what I love about the fact that there is one at the middle school and one at the high school is that that person, we have a gal, but that person is able to establish relationships with these kids, and they're more willing to go to her, in our case, if they have a problem or if they see something. So I think that's why it's important to have somebody in the schools full-time, and
Right.
so I'd love to see that happen. If we can get up to even 6, you know, or 7.
Sure.
Anyway, though, I wanted to talk to you about something a little less serious,
Yep.
and that was the fact that you've enjoyed our new play area, right, in the Shaw's
have,
Plaza.
yeah.
Tell me about it.
So there's a new family entertainment center up at the Apple Tree Mall called Extreme Craze. It's the single largest inflatable air park in the country. It's huge.
It is.
I don't
Well,
know
there
the
was a
square
lot of
footage,
space
but
available.
it's huge. I
Because
mean,
it's all of old TJ's and all of old Home Goods, right? And
no,
even
it's
more?
actually not.
No?
It's only a portion of the Home Goods, the former Home Goods, believe it or not. So there's a new gymnastics
Oh, that's what
space, which took part of the Home Goods area, and then this Extreme Craze took the other part. But you go in there, and it's still tons of space in there. I never realized how big it was until
It was empty, and then it was
empty.
full.
Yeah. But they have a major inflatable air park with a Ninja Warrior course in there. There's a big laser tag area as well.
So which
2
parts did you
floors.
experience?
Well, so I tried out the inflatable park that day. It was a lot of fun, Mary. I know how much fun I had in it. I can only imagine how much fun kids will have in
Right.
it. But certainly adults can go into it. I mean, it's huge. The thing is huge. I tried out the slides a couple of times. Fun tested and approved.
So it's built so that a parent could follow their child through
Absolutely.
and to make sure that
Yep.
they're safe. That
No,
kind
absolutely.
Of thing.
Yeah. So it's got that, the laser tag, a 2-story laser tag place. They've got arcades in there. You can win prizes. They serve pizza in there as well. They can do birthday parties. They have a whole private mezzanine section. So, I mean, invested millions into it.
Right.
And really, I think it's great for the community to have this in here now. There's nothing like it in the area.
Right.
And it's a great, by the way, it's a great readaptation of space in that plaza because strip malls are struggling right now.
But this is a good thing.
But this is a great, inventive use for that space, much like the gymnastics, instruction space next door. And the new owner of the plaza is putting a ton of work into it. I'm sure people, if they've been up there, have seen it. It's got the new parking lot. The facade of the building's all being redone right now with something more contemporary and modern looking. He's got new signs that are coming in. He's put a whole new roof on the building, which, nobody sees the roof, but you had leaks in a lot of those places. So he's put a whole new roof on it. And really, he's bringing that plaza back to life. And that's what you want. You want owners of these places who aren't going to be absentee landlords, but who are going to invest money in these plazas, which in turn make the community look really nice.
So now that this is an advertisement, a commercial for those places, it's just, I wanted people to understand that you are bringing, and you are credited with a lot of this, Kevin. I hope you understand that as a town citizen, I appreciate you bringing these types of businesses in because it helps my taxes.
Yeah, well,
spread that out.
And it's very kind of you to say that. I always feel like I'm trying to have the best interest in the community in mind, and I'll tell you that on this, on the Air Park Laser Place, he contacted me 2 years ago and said, I'm looking at moving into the Shaw's Plaza, putting a thing there. What can you tell me about the area? What can you tell me about the demographics and that sort of thing? And we gave him a lot of information. And unfortunately, at that time, the former owner of the plaza was more or less an absentee landlord there, wasn't putting any work into it, and ended up getting foreclosed on by the bank in that plaza. But I kept in communication with this guy and kept saying, be patient, it'll be worth it in the end when we have a new owner that you can deal with. And fortunately, he was patient. And once the new owner took over, I put them in connection with one another because he said, obviously I'm looking for, if you hear of anybody, I'm looking for tenants to move in there. And I said, I got a guy for you who wants to go in there. Yeah. And I'm so happy it came together,
So that's one of the wonderful things that's happening, locally, closer to the center of town. there's also a lot of exciting things up at near the airport, the chicken.
Yeah, poultry products Northeast.
Right.
And, you know, the paper called it a processing plant. They're not processing chickens in there. You know that
I
from
do know
serving on
that.
the planning board.
Right.
Because that caught a few people's eyes and said, well, what's the smell going to be like?
Right.
And as you know, being on the planning board and having seen the plans, they're more doing warehousing and distribution out of there, lab testing, I think, as well, but they're not actually processing chickens
Right.
through that. But they're consolidating plants that they have. They have one in Hooksett right now, and they're building a fairly large distribution place near Coca-Cola, up by Exit 5. It's great to see, you know, we always hear about Pettingill Road, but it's great to see Exit 5 continuing to have new business coming in.
Right.
And so that's, again, very positive for the town. It's going to add to the tax base and help keep taxes low. The other thing, too, I got to really credit the Heritage Commission, because somebody asked me recently, they wanted to know what the hotel was that
I know, really.
that was being built behind Twins.
Right.
And I said, well, there's already a hotel there. I said,
Right.
you're talking about the Sleep Inn? No, the new brick hotel that's behind Twins. I started laughing because I said, it's not a hotel.
Right.
What is it? Self-storage. Self-storage. It doesn't look like self-storage.
No, it doesn't.
And you know what? That's great, because while we were all very, I think, we love business, I think we would have liked to have seen something, a higher use than self-storage at that. But they met the criteria.
Right.
And so, you know, and they purchased the land, so they're allowed to go in. But the Heritage Commission and the Planning Board said, well, if you're going to be in this prominent location, we want it to have a certain look
Right.
to it that doesn't stick out like a sore thumb.
And what we found, at least I did as one person on the planning board, was that they had a lot of pride in the product that they
Absolutely.
you know, that
Yep.
they brought, and the designs that were terrific.
Yeah.
It does, you know, overwhelm both the Twin Shop and that, and really to have a higher use because of having to take left turns into it, I wouldn't have wanted a higher use than what it is.
Well, and that was the upside of it,
Right.
is there's very little traffic involved with
Right.
that facility.
Right.
And so that was a benefit.
Right. So, you know, we're working hard, both
Yeah.
you bringing it in
Yeah.
and we on the planning board and,
Yep.
you know,
No,
Heritage Commission, all these other commissions, all these other, you know, groups that we have overseeing these types of things for the
Right.
town, to make sure that the architecture is, you know, we just finished the whole thing with the bank
Yep.
right. You know, reassessment there. And that's gonna be it's
It's
gonna look nice when that's completed.
I think people will be very pleased with the
Right.
final product when they see that.
And it'll make a difference in that whole presentation of that plaza.
Right.
So you don't know what, you know, when somebody upgrades something, then somebody else wants to upgrade it, especially since they're so close to Woodmont.
Right.
They're gonna wanna stay competitive. So
Right.
it only helps.
It does only help, and the town's making investments too. I mean, we're putting in sewer right now to the Apple Tree Plaza, to the movie theater, to the workout club, and to Century Village. Something that's been long overdue. It's been on our town sewer facilities plan for 20 years. We're bringing it up there to allow higher end users to be able to, you know, if they want to put a restaurant now at Apple Tree Plaza, they can do that because they have sewer.
Right.
When you're just on septic, restaurants,
Yeah, it's difficult.
they don't want to be on septic.
No, because it's limiting what you can cook. Because there have been
Right.
some restaurants that have tried to go into Shaw's Plaza and just Apple Tree Plaza. It hasn't worked.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're making that investment as a town and hoping things like the movie theater, for instance. You know, it's an AMC. AMC is a national company. It would be great now with them having municipal sewer to upgrade that movie theater, do the parking lot over.
Right.
Again, we can't force them to do these things, but we're hoping that they see the investment we're making. Maybe they'll see the investment that the owner of the Apple Tree Plaza is
Right.
making and say, okay, we got to up our game now too.
Right. Well, and I don't want to keep advertising all these different places, but I appreciate AMC trying to give us some a break on like Tuesdays. I think it's less expensive to go, and
Right.
certainly my age, it's less expensive to go, so that works too. But that's a lot of places. It's not just the movie theater.
Yeah.
Kevin, I know we talked about a couple of the Warrant articles. Was there any other one that you wanted to make sure the folks know about?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head, but I would just say if people look at the sample ballots are online now, people can look at them. If they have any questions at all about any of the Warrant articles or the tax impact of the Warrant articles, where the money's coming from, that, give us a call.
Okay.
Give myself a call. Give Doug Smith, our finance director, a call. And we're happy to talk people through it and walk people through it so that they know what they're voting on.
So is Doug staying with us until June 30th, or is he
No,
gone before
Doug's
then?
last day is March 30th.
Wow.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Doug only has about a month left.
Wow.
And then Justin Campo, who's been our senior accountant under Doug for the last 2 years, will be moving into that role.
Yeah.
So, and then we've already hired Justin's replacement.
And that person's training right now? or-
Well, her name's Deb Patakula, and she is actually the current finance director in Hollis.
Oh,
And so she's got a wealth of knowledge and experience, and she'll be coming over and moving into Justin's position, and I think are going to make a great team, and should be a seamless transition.
does she live in Londonderry, or does she live in Hollis?
My understanding is she does live in Londonderry.
Nice, so
Yeah.
better commute.
Much better commute for her.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, well, Kevin, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks again for having me.
Okay,
I'll
and-
see you next month.
Yes, this
Yeah.
is, and that'll be after the election, so we may have,
Yep,
lots of changes, lots of things to talk about,
sure.
okay? This is Mary Wing Soares, and this is Transparency in Government. Thank you for joining us.